We talked quite a bit last night about transhumanism, turning our reality over to a digital grid, and essentially getting everyone to acquiesce to that in the name of, saving the planet from global warming and resource reduction, all the rest of that. And it's interesting that I talked about how a lot of these transhumanists, like Ray Kurzweil, a lot of them are have put the singularity as occurring, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years ahead in the future. But there have been some people who have speculated that with the way that technology has exponentiated over the past decade, I mean, it's unbelievable. The processing power of 5 years ago, the processing power we have today 5 years ago was still considered 20 years off. I mean, literally, processing power in 2005, what we have now in 2005 was considered 20 years off. So in 5 years, we already have processing power that 5 years ago was 20 years away. So what does that mean? Because a lot of people have speculated that the singularity could be here as soon as 2015. So it was interesting that I had mentioned that last night and talked about that last night on the show. And then today, synchronistically, here's this article. And I wonder if there's a connection here. I'll let you decide. IBM expects to see holographic phone calls and air-powered batteries by 2015. There's that number again. Very interesting. By 2015, your mobile phone will project a 3D image of anyone who calls you, and your laptop will be powered by kinetic energy. At least that's what International Business Machine Corporation sees in its crystal ball. The predictions are part of an annual tradition for the Armonk, New York-based company, which surveys its 3,000 researchers to find 5 ideas expected to take root in the next 5 years. IBM, the world's largest provider of computer services, looks to Silicon Valley for input, gleaning many ideas from its Alamon Research Center in San Jose, California. Holographic conversations projected from mobile phones lead this year's list. The predictions also include air-breathing batteries, computer programs that can tell when and where traffic jams will take place. See, most people that in this little list would kind of just mow over that. Think about that just by itself. Computer programs that can tell when and where traffic jams will take place. So they're able to predict. This is AI stuff. This is, Caesar level stuff we're talking about here, but even on a lower level, computer programs that can tell but when and where traffic jams are going to take place before they do. That's almost precog stuff. Environmental information generated by sensors in cars and phones and cities powered by the heat thrown off by computer servers. These are all stretch goals, and that's good, said Paul Saffo, managing director at Foresight and the Investment Advisory for Discern in San Francisco. It's an era when the pessimism is the new black. A little dose of technological optimism is not a bad thing. So again, this is, continuing on with this reliance and everything and all of the solutions for everything in our world being turned over to technology. And again, you just can't help but think this is a very, very dangerous road for mankind to be going down. It just really, it's pretty wild. I had a question from the email, globalrealityshow@gmail.com, where you can also email questions if you don't like to call in. There's got a message from Rick in San Diego. Rick says, it's interesting that you talked about Avatar last night because that made me think of something, remembering that the Na'vi are a blue-skinned race. This ties into what I found in my research about a blue-skinned race that is subterranean. I first came across reference to this when reading Edda Dorfa, where a blue-skinned alien-looking creature led the main character into the inner earth. Then I kept coming across references over and over in different literature about the subject of subterranean cities and subterranean dwellers that pertain to a blue-skinned race. I think Avatar was also pointing to the idea of this, or was a reference to this as well. Also, apparently, there are numerous instances of Indian legends around the country, particularly in places like Kentucky, where, of course, in Kentucky, that's Edda Dorfa and all that stuff. Yeah, the entrances to inner earth. Apparently, there are entrances to inner earth in Kentucky in the caves there, and other places where they interacted with a blue-skinned cave-dwelling race. He says, I think it is no accident Cameron made the Na'vi blue. Yeah, that was immediately the thing sort of for me when I saw Avatar, was the whole, because I always, even from a young age, when I used to see like the Hindu gods, and you see things of Shiva and all this different stuff, and they're always blue. And I don't know, man. Even, for the first time I ever saw a lot of those, sort of the Hindu gods and stuff. I mean, I knew something just inside of me knew, even at a young age, those were aliens. Something just, but then it comes to the whole question that we've talked about here on the show before of whether or not, these extraterrestrials are even coming from space. They're, and this is something, when I say this to people sometimes don't get what I'm sort of driving towards here. But the real truth of the matter is that we have about as much evidence to prove that extraterrestrials and flying saucers are coming from outer space as they are from inner space. I mean, I think it's just as plausible, folks, that UFOs and extraterrestrials could be coming from inside of the Earth as they are coming from outer space. Now, I think that in my opinion, if you wanted to just hear what I had to say on that, then I would say that it's both. That's just my opinion. I base that on the fact that we had, that we've had so many of these reports of what they were called sky gods, and a lot of the ancient iconography in ancient civilizations. That's why they always had the winged disc, or they had these creatures that were bird-like, representing that they flew. But again, just because these things flew doesn't mean that they originated from outer space. Even if they came out of the sky, they could have also originated out of portals deep within the oceans. There have been voluminous amounts of reports, even going back to Christopher Columbus and others through the years, who have seen many reports of flying craft coming out of the oceans and out of lakes and out of ponds and all kinds of stuff. So there is definitely a connection with craft, and there's a precedent for craft coming out of the water. There's also been reports from ancient civilizations about these ancient portal systems within the Earth that these extraterrestrial craft use to jump great distances across the galaxy. This is why there's been so much apparent activity and visitations through the years on Earth, is just because this is basically like this planet is essentially sort of a gateway, a big, a transit station, a subway station for jumps across galaxies. And I talked about that not too long ago. I'd seen the movie They Live, of course, hundreds of times. And it wasn't even until a month or two ago when I'd watched the movie again that I ever noticed. I don't know what I was doing the other 100 times I watched that movie. I just wasn't paying attention, or it didn't really dawn on me. But I thought that was interesting because and it's just so funny because the guy, they go downtown, they go down underneath the subterranean passages, and They Live, Roddy Piper and Keith David, and they're down there. And it's funny because when they get down there, they're like in an intergalactic Council for National Policy meeting. Literally, it's like, that's what it looks like. I mean, because, there's good old boys down there, and they're like the elite, and, and then in the subterranean passages in the movie They Live, underneath, there's this, and that's what the guy says, the good old boy redneck. He says, yeah, it's like an intergalactic subway or something. And he makes references to how he's like, I'm not even sure how it works, but these different extraterrestrials are going through this portal and going across different areas of the galaxy. So, see, that's been hinted about. So it makes you wonder if that's indeed possibly what a lot of these gods have been referenced. And we've all often have been told they're extraterrestrials. But what if they're not? What if the whole story of telling us that these gods or whatever came from outer space is actually just another cover story to keep us from ever finding out what's going on inside of the Earth? It's definitely a possibility. And I think it's one that shouldn't be discounted. And we can't afford to really discount anything at this point. And especially with the testimony of Admiral Byrd and how his airplane was zapped by a UFO and taken inside. And, he met with this whole inner Earth group of people. I mean, I've talked about the stuff here in Dallas that's crazy. I mean, considering Dallas is on the 33rd parallel, smack dab on the 33rd degree, and you have these reports of laser etched tunnels being found under the city of Dallas when they built the sewer systems here, which led to the entrance on this. It used to be this big family farm. It's now this big family. Well, it used to be this big, huge family farm. This big plot of land is now, and has been for, I don't know, 30, 40 years, Texas Instruments. big microchip producing company. Texas Instruments sits right on this big former family farm that was there going back to the foundation of Dallas, and allegedly at the front of this Texas Instruments building are the entrances to these underground cave networks. And there was some reports that I read of different scientists in the Dallas-Fort Worth area that were brought in and asked to identify these 3 small green-skinned creatures that were found underground in these different tunnels under the city of Dallas, and they were asked to identify them, and they couldn't, and that's all anybody ever heard of it. But it's, again, it's a great question there, Rick, but at this point, I don't really discount anything out. But boy, we're getting in lots of email messages here tonight. So let me go. I'll continue to address these. What was the phrase from the different movies that you said last night? I talked about that last night. It was Gort, G-O-R-T, Klaatu, K-L-A-A-T-U, Barada, B-A-R-A-D-A, Nikto, N-I-K-T-O. I got into that last night. You can go back and listen to that. Go back and listen to last night's show if you want to know about what that means. I'm not going to get into it again. It's just some interesting things that I found and some different correlations between movies. It's on the wall in Alan's cubicle in the original Tron. It's the phrase that the lady says to the robot Gort in the original Day the Earth Stood Still to keep the alien from destroying Earth. Keanu Reeves says it in the 2008 remake of The Day the Earth Stood Still, and that's an interesting correlation because Tron was the first Matrix before there was the Matrix, and then you have Keanu Reeves, who was in the Matrix, saying that as well. It's also the name of the 3 aliens on Jabba's ship in Return of the Jedi. It's also the phrase that Ash says in Army of Darkness to destroy the Necronomicon. So I think it's some sort of Kabbalistic magical spell is what I think it is. But more research needs to be done. But again, you can listen to last night's show and hear me talk about that more and more. I'm not going to get into it again. Another question here from the email. Interesting that you brought up the year 2015 and Ray Kurzweil, because I was reading an interview with him last week, and one of the questions asked was how he sees the world in 2015. Wow. There it is again. I was just talking about last night that, because I had read, people were saying, the singularity is not going to come for 30, 40, 50, 80 years. And I started reading things where they were saying that the way the technology was progressing now could very well be here as soon as 2015. Because again, 5 years ago, we thought the processing power we have right now today was 20 years off. He says it ties it up with what you've been explaining. Anyway, here's the link to the question. Okay, life. And we'll just go and we'll read this. Ray Kurzweil is well known for making accurate future technology predictions. He has been successfully predicting the future by using extrapolations of the current state of technology since the beginning of the 90s. It's a long read, but well worth it. And it says, question number 11, how do you envision the world in 2015? This is a question to, of course, Ray Kurzweil, who coined the phrase, the singularity. What economic and technological predictions would you make for that year? Kurzweil says, by 2015, computers will be largely invisible and will be very small. We will be dealing with a mesh of computing and communications that will be embedded in the environment and in our clothing. That's the first step toward transhumanism right there, isn't it? People in 2005 face a dilemma because on the one hand, they want large, high-resolution displays. They can obtain these displays by buying expensive 72-inch flat-panel plasma monitors, but they also want portable devices which have limited display capabilities. By 2015, we will have images input directly onto our retinas. This allows for a very high-resolution display that encompasses the entire visual field of view, yet is physically tiny. These devices exist in 2005 and are used in high-performance applications such as putting a soldier or a surgeon into a virtual reality environment. So in 2015, if we want large, high-resolution computer images, it will just appear virtually in the air. We will have augmented reality, including pop-up displays explaining what is happening in the real world. We will be able to go into full immersion, visual, auditory, virtual reality.